There's a moment in warfare that rarely gets talked about. The instant when an army realizes it has lost before the first shot is fired. Not because they were outnumbered, not because they were outgunned, but because the enemy used a tactic so effective, so destabilizing, and so destructive to command structures that it was eventually banned by international agreements. And yet, despite its outlawed status, modern forces still fear it, study it, and quietly prepare defences against it. In the next few minutes, we're diving into the strategy that brought entire divisions to their knees long before the fighting even began. If you're a serious history enthusiast or someone who studies survival, human conflict, or tactical decision-making, then this is one of those rare pieces of knowledge that never loses its relevance. Stick with me, because the opening story of how this tactic changed the outcome of an entire campaign sets the tone for everything that follows. The tactic we're talking about is the deliberate targeting of command and control through decapitation strikes. Not via modern air power, but through infiltration units, disguised operatives, and deep penetration teams whose sole purpose was to remove an army's leadership before a battle. The reasoning behind its ban is simple. It's just too powerful. It disrupts negotiations, it destabilizes captured regions, and it ensures that instead of organized fighting, war collapses into chaos. Yet, even now, military academies around the world quietly teach its history, because, well, any force that underestimates it ends up learning the hard way why commanders once feared hearing even a whisper of the tactic's name. Understanding how leadership disruption became the most decisive but most dangerous pre-battle strategy is honestly crucial for grasping the evolution of warfare itself. So, the idea behind the tactic was actually pretty straightforward. Instead of destroying the enemy's front line, you set out to destroy its brain. Ancient civilizations used early forms of this, but the tactic really reached its peak in the 20th century. Especially, during conflicts where infiltration units, irregular forces, and special operatives could slip behind enemy lines. Armies that employed this tactic understood, often all too well, that once decision-making collapsed, morale would follow instantly. Units without orders just stalled. Resupply routes froze. Defences fell out of sync. And before long, the battlefield shifted from a coordinated clash of forces to, well, scattered pockets of confusion. Its effectiveness, however, was also, in a way, its curse. Removing leadership structures didn't just cripple military effectiveness, it often sparked power vacuums among civilian populations. Occupying forces found themselves dealing with ungoverned cities, unpredictable militias, and populations with no clear authority to negotiate or surrender on their behalf. Eventually, the tactic was restricted or outright banned under various interpretations of international law, especially when disguised operatives or non-uniformed infiltrators were used, because, well, they blurred the line between soldier and civilian, turning every village, every farm, and every crowd into a potential battlefield. Understanding why armies still study this banned tactic in modern military academies. Despite its legal and ethical issues, the tactic remains essential reading in today's doctrine, because honestly, no modern force can afford to be vulnerable to it. Even in an age of drones, satellites, encrypted radios, and rapid response systems, the core weakness remains: remove leadership and the system collapses. Modern militaries, they study historical examples of how these infiltration-based decapitation operations succeeded, because the lessons still apply to cyber warfare, electronic attacks, and even misinformation campaigns. The danger today isn't a disguised commando slipping through the trees. It's a digital strike severing an entire command network, a psychological operation aimed at destabilizing officers, or a rapid drone swarm taking out key communication hubs. In a sense, the banned tactic didn't disappear. It simply evolved and changed its tools. This is why learning its history matters. Once you understand how leadership disruption works, you start recognizing the patterns in modern conflicts, political tensions, and even organizational failures. The principle is universal. Remove decision-makers and everything beneath them wobbles. Understanding this tactic, it really gives you practical real-world insight in survival leadership and crisis management. It's not just theory. These lessons can make a difference when the stakes are high. You don't need to be a soldier to appreciate the lessons behind this tactic. The principle applies to any system, whether it's a workplace, a community group, or even a large-scale emergency response. When the chain of decision-making goes silent, confusion spreads faster than any external threat. If you run a team, a business, or any group project, studying this tactic gives you a clear takeaway. Build redundancy. Armies that survived decapitation attempts did so because they prepared secondary leadership, alternate communication paths, and contingency plans. You can apply this on a personal or professional level by ensuring that your responsibilities aren't bottlenecked by you alone. If you handle all the knowledge, all the communication, or all the planning, then your team is, honestly, just one unexpected event away from collapse. In contrast, if others can step in, your group becomes resilient. Preppers and survivalists can apply the same logic. A family or group plan should not rely on one person as the sole navigator, medic, or decision-maker. The entire point of studying banned tactics is not to admire the destruction they caused, but to understand why they were effective, and then to build systems that can't be broken the same way. Why this banned tactic remains a lesson in power, vulnerability, and preparation. The tactic was outlawed because it created chaos beyond the battlefield, but its underlying logic still shapes modern conflict and strategy. It shows how fragile even the strongest armies can be when their central nervous system is removed. It teaches that power is never just about strength. It is about communication, leadership, and continuity. And it reminds us that in war, as in life, systems fail at their most centralized points. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you subscribe to In the Beginning and share the video with fellow history fans and survival-minded thinkers. This channel thrives because of viewers like you who appreciate deep, well-researched insights into the tactics and ideas that shape the world. Stay curious, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next episode.